fishing and he caught 4, but they were all really little. Like I think they stocked these.
They're like 60s.
Oh.
Just one who was with us. Nope. We went to Vail to the rodeo. And they were going to have fireworks, but the guy who usually funds it didn't come through, so they canceled it.
Really? Oh, yes. I designed it. Planned everything. Oh, it's 11:30. Okay. All right, it's 11:31. I'm gonna go ahead and get this meeting started. I don't have anything on my end, but wanted to ask, are there any housekeeping items? Questions on the agenda?
No, I just had a quick question. I
Commissioner
guess the director can give me, we deferred something to July 3rd, a condemnation. And we didn't have a meeting on July 3rd, so I just wanted an update. I assume you'll give me an update, give us an update during the director's report.
I thought it was indefinitely.
The minutes say it was deferred till July 3rd.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well,
Well,
it's in
we'll
the
get an
update.
answer for
Okay.
that. Commissioner McCain, did you have a question?
Yes, I have a question on item number 2 on our consent agenda. So if we have a minute, I'd like to ask a couple questions on that.
Oh, yeah. That's a good. I do too.
Okay, well, let staff answer those questions now. Welcome, Ms. Bevins.
Madam President, Commissioners, Diane Bevins, Manager of Capital Projects and Interim Deputy Director of Planning and Projects. The condemnation that we deferred to July 3rd, we're still in active negotiations with them. We're very hopeful to come to a conclusion with that negotiation without having to condemn, but we will bring it back next week, one way or the other, to close that item out.
Thanks.
Diane? All right, Commissioner McKinney, what's your question?
Yes, Director, item number 2 on our consent agenda is the Eagle Road signal performance measures. I just want to make sure I have a clear understanding of what this project is. The staff report indicated that this was an ITD project. ITD initiated it. But so are we paying for this? This is something that ITD asked us to do and we're paying to do it. Is that what's going on? Because it sounds like it was information they wanted, which makes me a little bit confused.
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, obviously Eagle Road plays an important function in the network at this point within the county. We worked with ITD over the last few years. Actually, this project has been going on a number of years. ITD paid the bulk majority of the cost for the project. We completed a lot of that work. The next step was to work on implementing the signal plans. Again, ACHD does the signal timing component and managing those signals because it does affect the east-west roads as well. ITD did a kind of a peer review of the study that they had us prepare. So and then there were some findings in that we want to incorporate into the signal timing plans. We did have a part in the project, and so this is just to wrap it up and finalize the signal timing plan so that we can do the work that we need to do. And so yes, ACHD is paying the cost that you see there, but ITD has borne the majority of the remaining project cost.
So the original contract amount was 100,000 and it's going up by another 49,000. So roughly $150,000. Of that amount, how much is ACHD paying?
Just one second.
I thought the original cost was higher.
President Pickering, Commissioner McKinney, the original project included $450,000 that ITD gave us. And that was to install all the equipment along the roadway that was needed. So this part that you're seeing here is just the professional services to implement the signal timings. But the project itself was larger, and as Ryan said, or I'm sorry, Director Head said that ITD bore the bulk of the initial cost, which would included installing all the material.
So the 450,000 that you talked about, that was paid by ITD, and this 150,000 for the timing analysis and peer review, that then is on our shoulders.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Director, over to you.
Wonderful. Commission, President Pickering, Commission, it's a pleasure to visit with you. I always enjoy this opportunity to talk about the good things staff is doing and to update you on a couple items. Pull up the presentation. So first, want to brag on Mr. Dave Rader. He is our accessibility and compliance supervisor with the appropriate title. He has completed the top training program for ADA coordinators and recently completed that. And so we wanted to highlight him for that effort and that great action shot we have going on there. So as always, I try and couch all the work that we're doing under these three key principles of building together, building safe, and building more. And so I want to highlight a few different areas there. First, I wanted to highlight this week, the chip seal teams have come together to work on Bogus Basin Road. One of the things that we do before is we make sure that it's crack sealed. There were not resources available, and so the crews came together and built a crew to go get that road crack sealed. I love this approach of taking care of what needs to be taken care of for the public, whether the resources are there or not to help us. And so this project is a pretty major project. It's a number of miles. I think they're doing 9 miles of the 16 total miles. But this requires all our sweeping and traffic control and traffic, and the team is working hard on this and just wanted to highlight that effort. The next is an issue that's been kind of on the team's radar for some time, and it's been even in front of the commission a few different times. As you may be aware, the state Department of Parks and Rec is working on Eagle Island State Park, which is that snake-looking pond area. They are building out a campground, and as a result, that's impacted the primary access off of State Highway 44. We've initially, working with the state, talked about installing a temporary signal at Linder and Hatchery, which is that section down at the bottom left of the picture. The state then said, no, we're going to be able to keep Highway 44 open. We've worked with our contractor and we're going to be able to do that. So they backed off of that partnership we were looking at. We were originally at that time going to look at providing the materials for them to install the signal. Well, they had some issues during construction. Surprise, surprise, there's high groundwater in that area, and they've had some challenges, and as a result have had to close the Highway 44 access point. Well, there's definitely some challenges when it comes to Hatchery. One of the things we've done is work to incorporate some speed mitigation on Hatchery in connection with the state. We partnered with them on that. But ultimately, now we're hearing from the state that the project is going to extend clear, and the closure is going to extend clear to October. So that's a challenge. We've looked at, is it possible to build an interim signal there, something quickly. Even if we had the space, the fastest we could probably accomplish it is October. So that's not really a great option for us. So staff has looked at other alternatives there, and one of the options that has come up is partnering with the state on providing some level of flagging at the high peak periods. The challenge really is both has to deal with the state project, but also has to deal with the amount of development that has occurred. In the last 10 years, Linder has gone from around 10,000 vehicles a day to over 20,000 vehicles a day, which makes it very difficult for anyone who's trying to get onto that road to get on and off. Hatchery before the project was around 2,000-ish, probably less vehicles a day. It's now over 7,000 vehicles a day that we're seeing. And so we do believe that there's an opportunity to improve the situation during this construction while we're working towards dealing with what we are building out Linder longer term, but at least addressing the safety and congestion concerns that are there. So we are going, the flagging that we would recommend is around $50,000. A little over $50,000. We're working with the state to partner and share that cost. And so we would be bringing back to you a interagency agreement on that in the near future. So just wanted to give you a heads up on this one because this has been obviously a topic of conversation. I know the commission's fielded a lot of questions from the public on this.
Thanks, Ryan. Commissioner Goldthorpe?
Yeah, Ryan, would we be entertaining this if there was no project on Highway 44 at the entrance?
We've definitely had the need to do something there definitely would be a lot less.
I know you're going to remember that as you negotiate the cost sharing with the state. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Next, I just wanted to share a quick note I got from an individual. This is out by Hillsdale Elementary. Commissioner Goldthorpe and I went out and visited this area a while ago, and this is one of the safety projects the team brought forward. They were already looking at doing some safety lighting, a school zone in this area, but we also identified where you can see the school crossing back there was a little counterintuitive for the students. It works for the students who live on the other side of that, on the east side of that crossing, but it doesn't really work for the students who live on the west. And so we identified another crossing location and just wanted to share the note that we got. She said, as our crosswalk project gets underway, I wanted to reach out again and say thank you so much for hearing our concerns and working to have them addressed. Myself and many other parents will feel much more comfortable sending our kiddos off to school next month, knowing there are additional safeguards in place for them. I know you and ACHD are likely inundated with requests like ours, and that most feedback and commentary the district receives probably isn't very positive. On behalf of the Hillsdale PTO, Hillsdale parents, and the Century Farm community, thank you, thank you, thank you for helping keep our kids safe. We appreciate this project more than you know. And just want to share that as a highlight for the good work that safety team is doing, the ability to respond and address concerns like this. And ultimately, it's been talked about for a while, but really we met with them late last year or at the end of the school year. And this was the team was able to turn this around in just months. So thought that was a positive thing to highlight.
Commissioner Goldthorpe?
Yeah, I just, it's been really an eye-opening pleasure to work with principals in this area, whether it's Hillsdale, Mary McPherson, Lake Hazel Elementary or Lake Hazel Middle School, because of little projects like this and the ones we did initially a few years ago to fill sidewalk gaps. Our level of esteem in the neighborhoods there and the professional community and educational community has just risen exponentially. And it's a pleasure working with these guys.
Thank you. So first of all, I wanted to highlight this beautiful picture of our newly opened, well, in the last month or two, of Lake Hazel and Maple Grove roundabout. It's a great looking project and traffic is moving very well through that area. And has all the wonderful facilities we'd like to see for all users. In the spirit of Build More, I just wanted to highlight that today you're going to have a presentation on the integrated 5-year work plan initial draft. I know the team has worked hard on this. I've reviewed it in great detail. I can tell you with all confidence that it is in full compliance with all the laws and that govern how we spend funding and have looked at that in great detail. I can also tell you that it's the first step as we continue to embrace this idea of building more. We have to have a plan and we have to have projects in place. The other thing we have for you today, and Stacy will hand this out, we have your packet for the budget work session you're going to have next week, which gives you also the initial draft of that. I know, again, the team has worked hard on this. We're looking at all funding sources, looking at all the different opportunities we have to build more, and want you to have the opportunity to review that in great detail. So just to highlight a couple things coming up, the downtown, next week, there's a meeting Mayor McLean has called. This is a follow-up to the one that we had last month to talk about, to the developers who are building in downtown, to talk about all the construction and the impacts there. Justin will be attending that meeting. I don't know if Commissioner Gold, you were attending that meeting as well. Okay. I'll make sure if you're interested that you have the information. But just wanted to make sure the commission's aware that that conversation is ongoing. Also wanted to highlight July 23rd will be that Neighborhood in the Know Budget Integrated 5-Year Work Plan Open House. I'm excited for that. I know Christy will highlight that as well. You see our next all staff again is on July 30th. That will be at Meeker. We'd love to have you come join us as we're celebrating some of the quarterly awards and some of the great work that's there. Also want to highlight National Night Out on August 6th. You also see our advisory committee meetings that are on the schedule. I'll also be presenting at the invitation of the AGC to their transportation committee on July 17th. We'll highlight a few of the issues we're working on with them. So with that, Commission.
Sorry to
Yes.
interrupt you, but Stacy, I noticed that the all staff meeting is not on at least my calendar. Do you mind resending those calendar invites for all of the all staff meetings? So thank you very much. Sorry to cut you off short, Ryan, but anything else?
That concludes my director's report.
Perfect. Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for the director? Thank you. All right. Well, we'll be at ease for 13 minutes. Thanks. Yeah, we wrote her in and so don't make us look right on yours.
I don't know much about Pedestrian. I did psychology in myself.
Make it happen.
But she is very knowledgeable.
I know.
I'm more well people.
I texted her and said I'm here.
Yeah. Commissioner Hands. I don't think the mic's on. I don't think the. All right, it's now 12 o'clock. I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order. Welcome everyone that's in person and online. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first order of business is to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next order of business is to adopt the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered routine and are action items unless otherwise noted. The consent agenda is enacted by one motion. There is no separate discussion on items on the consent agenda. If a commissioner or citizen would like, they may request an item be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. Don't believe we have any of those requests today. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Madam President, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. We don't have any action items, regular agenda items. So I'm just going to move into public communications. Is there anyone that would like to address the commission at this time? Okay. Well, with that, the meeting is adjourned. We're going to roll right into our post-commission agenda. We've got three, technically our agenda says 4 work sessions, but we actually only have 3. The first being an update from Micron. So come on up. Yeah. Oh, thanks, Christy.
I'm sorry. Madam President, as you'll recall, a couple months ago, members of the commission requested an update from Micron on the big expansion project.
Christy, you mind adjusting the mic a little bit so we can hear you a little bit.
So appreciate Micron taking the time to come meet with us, and they've been working closely. Various members of the Micron team have been working with our team on various aspects of the access for construction and impact fees and all of the like. So we appreciate you being here today to give us an update. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, beautiful.
Okay, beautiful. So Madam President, members of the commission, ACHD staff, want to thank you for having us here today. So my name is Heather Baldwin. My role at Micron is I'm Vice President of Real Estate and Construction Procurement. So I'm not an expert in transportation, but I joked earlier I stayed at a Holiday Inn last night, so you'll have to forgive me. I'm going to do the best I can to answer all your questions. I'm a little bit nervous because I've never done one of these before, but so forgive me, but I'm super excited to be here. And with me today is Rachel Burkett from our Idaho Government Relations Group and other members of our team. So I'm going to move forward to the first slide. So hopefully everyone's seen by now, this is a remarkable investment for Idaho that's being put in by Micron. $15 billion through the course of the decade. And what's really quite interesting about this is if you go back to sort of 2000, year 2000, Micron was sort of at peak employment at that point. So something around 12,000 people. We had a lot more manufacturing here in Boise. And over the years, that manufacturing's gone overseas. And what's been left is research and development. So the buildings that are on the campus now, and I'll show you a map a little bit later in the presentation, are mostly research and development, smaller sort of manufacturing operations that don't produce high volume product. So this investment for high volume manufacturing is so exciting for all of us, especially all of us that have been here a long time. Bring this product back to the US, bring it back to Idaho. and substantial number of jobs here in the area. This is part of $35 billion that we're going to invest over the next decade across our portfolio, which includes the announcements we've made in New York and other locations around the globe. So the economic impact, I think it's hard to highlight this strongly enough. This expansion, while over time, these manufacturing plants have become a lot more automated, they still employ a lot of people in really good paying jobs. And Micron provides excellent benefits for those folks. The other part about this is quite interesting, and I think I can comment a lot more on with my supply chain background, is we have a lot of other companies that need to support us over time. So these R&D fabs that are there now, there are some companies that need to come in and maintain the equipment. These are all, again, really high-tech jobs. But when you have a high-volume fab with thousands of pieces of equipment in it, you create a lot more of those high-paying, high-tech jobs from companies like Applied Materials and Lam Research and the others that already have a small presence in the area, but will have to grow. Those companies also do things like parts warehouses and other things that will bring things into that manufacturing plant. And so beyond the spending that occurs when we hire a new employee, they buy a car, they shop at the grocery store, they get their haircut, there's all these other economic opportunities that come as a result of the expansion. I'll pause there. Is there any questions about this part? Okay. So this is the map. Is there a pointer on here? Can I point over here? Can you see if I come over here?
You'll just be away from the mic though.
Oh, okay.
We can get a.
So the orange buildings, those are basically the manufacturing operation expansion. So that big building in the middle is the fab building. The buildings kind of to the south of it. Thank you. That will help. The buildings to the south of it. That doesn't work. Oh, never mind. So the buildings to the south of it, those are what we call high purity sort of chemical and gas buildings. So those are feeding chemicals and gases and things into this big fab building. This extension that you can see that kind of looks like an L shape, hockey stick shape that goes out to the left there, that orange extension, that's the Pro building. So that's actually connecting to two existing buildings that are the research and development fabs that I mentioned. So you will be able to do some research work in those fabs, actually run through the automated material handling system, the semiconductor chips into the high volume plant, share equipment, which is part of one of the benefits of having this expansion in Idaho is that ability to share equipment. In front of that L-shaped piece, the hockey shaped piece is a office building for those workers that would support the fab and a parking garage. Up to the northwest or northeast corner of the property there, these things that are not in orange, those are Idaho Power Utilities. There's a gas plant, Air Liquide gas plant, and some other things that would feed. Those are the ones that are up closer to Columbia Road there in the plan. So when you look at the footprint of what's being put here from a kind of a real estate point of view, it's basically a doubling of what's there today. And everything pretty much due south from what's there today. Any questions on that part?
Madam President,
Commissioner McKinney.
so, and I may be jumping the gun. If I am, just let me know. But so then the roadways that we see on the site, are all of those then private, or where's the break point between on-site facilities that are private facilities versus public roadways?
Yeah, so everything that's like Federal Way inside, Columbia Road inside, Technology Way inside, those are all private roads on the campus. And when I get to talking about construction, I'll talk about the construction traffic. The Eisenman, you can't really see it on this map, but Eisenman, which is the next interchange, we've received access through. And so all the construction traffic comes from Eisenman onto a temporary double lane dirt road that we've built that goes all the way around the back of the property. And there's some other things about construction around reducing traffic that I can comment on as well.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, so I'll have a series of questions, mostly because of the awareness of the folks who live out in the neighborhood out on
Yes.
Columbia Road. You're very aware of the fact that Columbia is their only access point.
Yes.
and that the high sensitivity, the fact, even though many of them work out at Micron, that there's only that one access, and if access is broken, which is one, then there's trapped. And that's one of the reasons why Boise asked for, and we added another access road to Highway 21 from Columbia to the master street map. It's just, the location is not designated, but it is, so it's just an idea. It's not
Yeah,
funded.
And I'd be
It-
happy to comment on that.
Yeah,
So,
and that's really important as they're looking at that.
Mm.
And the other, of course, is that multiple access points to the west through the Lake Hazel extension, as opposed to using the interstate, in addition to using the interstate to access point to the west. So
Yeah.
those are the public roads we have
Yeah.
a
So
special sensitivity to.
I can comment on both those, and I'll flip back and forth between slides. Madam President, did you want to bring?
I don't want you to have to skip though too far.
No, it's
ahead if
okay.
you
I think
don't
it's,
want to.
it's good. I think we'll come back to a couple other points, but it's a good discussion. This particular map shows one of ACHD's planned arterials coming off of Technology in Columbia, basically. And you can see from this map that arterial actually cuts through where we're doing the construction. So we would eventually need to plan to move that to the east. But why this is more important, to your earlier point about access, is we don't own the access rights for any of that. And I also don't own the access rights to the north. I guess I don't have a good map that shows the north road that you're referring to that connects to Highway 21. I don't also own the access to that. In both cases, we are keenly interested in helping create those opportunities for that access for a variety of reasons, including for the homeowners that are out there. But we don't have the control over the access to that.
That's true, and neither do we, but Simplot Company, I believe, owns it, and they have an interest in the company, so they're gonna benefit from the enhanced value of Micron. So we understand there's a relationship there.
Yes.
And that there's various relationship, but it's really important that this happens sooner rather than later, because later could be after some incident happens on Columbia Road.
Yeah, we actually approached Simplot Company. So in this map where the Eisenman, you can see Eisenman, that's the pink, where the pink comes off that interchange. We actually approached Simplot about access through and all the way to the kind of the back property line there where the homeowners are, and a road that would go all the way through, and we're not able to secure access from them. We've also had discussions with them around similar access across to Highway 21, and we're not able to secure access from them. They have cooperated and given us temporary access for all construction, but have not been interested in allowing us to put a public road in.
So, yeah, that's why I think it's real important that we work with a public agency, both the city of Boise and ACHD, because there's probably a public necessity there, and the tools that the public agencies have in terms of securing right of way are different than two private companies that are trying to negotiate with each other, even though one private company benefits from the other private company.
I understand.
And
Yeah.
so forth. But I think it's really critical that that happen before all of those employees are attempting to access that, and the demand, trying to be proactive in figuring out the arterial network and the access points.
Yes, I completely agree with you. So I'll back up a few slides here. Okay, so I commented on the sort of the layout and what's occurring. In terms of the what's happening with construction, and I'll talk.
Question.
Commissioner
Thank you, Madam President. So this map doesn't show where that arterial might be, but the other map does that connecting arterial.
Yes.
So the design is assuming that there won't be another connecting arterial.
So the discussion that we had with ACHD when we laid out this map, we talked about needing to move that arterial to the east.
To the east, but
And-
but right now it doesn't, this assumes it's not gonna exist.
It
This-
assumes it's not going to exist in the current planned location. Yes.
Mhm.
Not that it won't
Because wouldn't
exist.
work Anyway.
It would just need to
Because-
move to the east. So I'll go back to that
Yeah,
map for a second.
so it's
You would
gotta
just need to
move
move it to the east.
way over to the east, JRS properties.
Yeah, we actually own property. So behind those homeowners there, we own that property. We own the property in between those JRS properties. We'd gone to JRS with some plans that showed an arterial that would kind of go around. We hadn't talked to that ACHD necessarily about that, but we had sort of went to them with some options.
Yeah.
And we're not successful.
Yeah, and this is, well, I've voiced this multiple times, it's my disconnect with the level of impact fees that this facility is building and the ancillary facilities that would be built to serve won't be going to pay for this because we haven't designated the location, nor is it funded on in our capital improvements plan. So it's like, we know we're gonna get some resources through impact fee program. That's the function of an impact fee, is to pay for the impacts of development, but the impact fees for this development are gonna go to something else. And the impacts of this development for an arterial access points will have to be paid for out of some other pool. So there's this frustrating disconnect that, and I'm speaking at least half towards our own staff and my fellow commissioners, because we've done this to ourselves.
I understand.
Commissioner Goldberg.
I appreciate what you're saying. I personally had not anywhere near this kind of an idea about where that arterial might go, and I knew you were having problems with the Simplot family. But I would object to the general brush that Commissioner Hanson used for what we might or might not have as constraints for using your impact fees, because that hasn't been brought up to the commission, and that is up to us. Thank you.
Carry on, Heather. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna move on.
Thank you.
So if you've flown over, if you've come on an airplane into Boise from the south, you've flown over the site, hopefully, and seen, and I like to say it's a beehive of activity out there. It's amazing what's happening. You all are welcome to come for a tour. So we have a bus service where we have someone from the construction team that can drive you through the site. You can see the entire site. We would welcome the ability for the commission and members from ACHD and others to come and do that. We've recently done that with other folks here in the community. I was out there yesterday. It's really amazing to go see it for yourself. There's currently about 500 construction workers on site. The majority of those that are on site right now are iron workers, concrete workers, and other basic things related to the underground infrastructure. You'll see, if you went out there today, you would see the fab building starting to take shape. And there's steel trusses, box trusses for the roof and everything that are starting to be assembled. And so I mentioned earlier that we've been very sensitive around the impacts of the construction traffic. And we got that temporary or that access from Simplot, and we built a road off Eisenman. The other thing that we've done is all of the construction parking is back there in the back part of that property. It's all been built, it's laid down. The other thing that we've done that is, I think, quite wonderful is we're pouring something like 4,000 yards of concrete a day right now, a week, and that we built batch plants on site. So we're using 3 batch plants on site that are capable of producing 15,000 yards a week. There's 29 concrete trucks that never leave the site. We've blasted something like, we've used 3 million pounds of dynamite to blast, and we're using all that aggregate that we're digging up to make the concrete. Of course, you need some of the other materials, but a lot of that is on site today. So we've tried to do as much as we can to minimize all those kinds of construction traffic impacts on the community. And then the rest of the construction traffic's being routed the other way. The peak construction workers, we expect the peak construction workers to be around 4,000. That should be probably next May, April is what it's looking like right now, according to the construction. So the building will go weather tight. The fab building will go weather tight in the fall. And we would then start working on the inside of the building. And that's really where most of the peak construction workers will come. So you're gonna have electricians, pipe fitters, sheet metal workers, insulators, those types of workers. We are actively looking at options to the south for potential places for construction workers to stay. Again, trying to keep as much traffic as we can to the south and not out to the north and the west. Some of that we can control, some of that we can't, but we're trying to be very proactive around what those the way those construction workers are coming and their impact on the community. To your earlier point, we have our construction partner has a community relations position. We're actively engaged with the homeowners in that area out there. So when we're working at night, when we're doing blasting, anything else that could trouble them, we try to be very proactive about that. Then the building has what we call a ready for equipment, which would be fall of 2025. That's when we start moving the first pieces of equipment in, and then ready for manufacturing is when we start producing our first semiconductors out of the plant that could be shipped to customers. And that's a little bit later in the fall of 2025. And then we would start having lots more permanent folks on site when we ramp into high volume. The other thing that's important to note about this project, and I'll go back to the map for a second so it's clear. So this fab building that's in the middle that I mentioned, we're basically building the shell of the building in its entirety. So that shell is like 600,000 square feet. And then what we'll do is we'll fit the inside in phases. So we're in phase 1 right now. And so that peak of 4,000 workers will come down again, and then it's probably going to come up again and come down again as we fit this thing out over time. That's fairly normal for us to do that. Most of the other factories we've built around the globe, this kind of thing happens a little bit over time. And so we'll see a little bit of change as we do that. I don't ever expect the peak to be ever high as 4,000 again. It will be something lower, but there's an expectation that there should be a general amount of construction activity out there that's for a long period. Any questions about that part or comments?
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Yeah, you probably heard, or maybe you haven't, but others have. There's been all these red flags and bells and everything going up either on social media or sometime in the regular media about you better be ready to spend $500 to have your toilet unclogged because all the plumbers are going to be working for Micron or Meta, and you've heard those.
No, I haven't heard
Okay.
that, but it's funny.
Well, anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up because now it sounds like it's not a permanent drain on every piece of talent we have here in the valley. And undoubtedly you're bringing in a lot yourself.
Yeah, so it's a great point because I think the director and I were talking about this earlier. So we're really quite sensitive to, there's a lot of other economic activity here in the state and especially in Southwest Idaho. And even before we announced our expansion, there was already a strain on a lot of those kinds of resources. And that's true for nationally as well as locally. Because Southwest Idaho has grown so quickly, but also some of these trades like plumbers and electricians especially, there was like a lot of these areas, there's an aging curve, people retiring and less people entering the trades. And so one thing that we're working on is we've been running initiatives to attract people into the trades and get them trained in the trades. So I'm running a Women in Construction initiative. We're working with veterans groups. We've talked to the prisons. We're trying to figure out how do we get people into these really good paying jobs so that overall we can increase the number of people in the state that have these skills. Now, those are longer term solutions. There are some of these workers that need to come from other states, and that's pretty normal for some jobs this size. But we're trying to work with the different contractors in the community to make sure that we're timing some of those builds and where the resources are coming from, and also being sensitive around the competition for labor that occurs and how it drives up the price of things, and try to be really transparent and open and make sure that we're having that dialogue with everybody. Again, some of these things you can't always control, but you can do the best that you can to be proactive and have dialogue with everyone in the community, including the contracting community.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So a couple of comments. So when we did our annexation and we started our plan, these are the 3 projects that were required as part of that. Just a quick status update on those. So there's 2 of those that were with ITD. The one in the bottom left there, the traffic study and the work with ITD indicated we needed to make that adjustment, and that's already been completed. We are working with ITD on the top part there on the right, contributing to some bike pathway in that area. The Federal Way Gate B is something that we're going to be working on with ACHD. There's a little bit more work we have to do there to decide what's the right path there, but we're in progress of doing that. So these are the 3 things that were required and the status of them.
Commissioner Henson.
Yeah, as you know, there was a fatality a child killed at the intersection of Highway 21 and Technology Way. And what is it, Lake Forest, Grand Forest, taking whatever the other road that comes off of there. We have a safety team that is addressing that comes into play. So it would be helpful to know whether ACHD is involved in this because, you know, while it's an ITD road, Highway 21 is Technology and Grand Forest, the roads in Columbia Village are ACHD. And we need to mobilize our resources so that that doesn't happen. This is a place where there is, if we say there's going to be a bike path, the turning, it's the turning traffic mostly onto and off of. The perception is, oh, I just have to pay attention to what traffic is on Highway 21. I don't pay attention to anything else. And they start turning, whether it's left or right. In this case, I can't remember which one it was, but it's really important that everybody get this right so that it doesn't happen again. And I'd like to hear from our staff what's being done so that ITD, Micron, and ACHD can address that. Because with the volume of people coming into that area, there's going to be that much more risk for the kids who live in Columbia Village and in the other neighborhoods, Painted Ridge, at that intersection. That's a dangerous intersection right now.
I personally can't address that, but I can say that that work that's being done with ITD is a direct result of that. I don't know if staff needs to answer that question now or how it works, but we can
No,
pick it up.
no, you don't need to. I mean, we can make sure you're connected if you haven't been
Okay,
already.
I think we'll
The
follow
exact
up and we'll
folks.
make sure the question that you're asking gets answered.
Mhm.
No question. I think the other thing I would add while we're on that subject is on the federal way side, several years ago, we made that large investment. And so basically you can come from south of or north of there, all the way on your bike, all the way safely, all the way onto our campus and even through the back part of the campus. And all that was a significant investment that we made. And I drive there every day because we talked earlier that I live down the hill from there and I can see it's getting significant use. So it's really quite nice that that's there now. You mentioned the Lake Hazel extension and the arterial between, we talked about the arterial already, but we didn't talk about Lake Hazel. So again, the Lake Hazel extension's not required for our expansion, but it is something we wanted to bring up and note that is something that we're keenly interested in seeing how this plays out, how we pursue it, how we help support it. We do know there's a lot of Micron workers and others that live that direction. There is people that can come around that way. I think this is something that would mutually benefit the whole community if we were able to figure out how to get it done. So I'll just leave it at that as something that we're interested in helping pursue.
There, what's the status of like exploring this with the city or the county? Have you shared this like level of detail with them as well? Or no?
Yeah, there was recently an application to the city for a development that's, I don't remember the name, but it's out there to the left. And we had conversations with the city at the time. We do know that, I think it's the urban renewal district. So part of that's in the urban renewal district, part of it's not. We've had some of those types of discussions with the city. We talked to the developers of that housing development and how we would support it. And so we've had initial discussions, but not too far.
Okay. Commissioner Goldthorpe?
Yeah, there's been an awful lot of discussion over the years about that Lake Hazel extension and the Orchard extension. And we're at an impasse with the city of Boise on how to proceed with the Orchard extension. At one time, it was their #1 priority, and now it's not even on the priority list any longer. And the developers out there along the proposed Lake Hazel extension were very, very interested in participating in every way on that extension, but a lot of it's based on the progress on the Orchard extension as well, because of how that would lighten the congestion and the traffic as well. And I'm just really pleased to hear that you're actually very interested in seeing that occur, because at least I on this commission had absolutely no idea that you were positive on that.
Yeah, we have a lot of employees that live Cole Road all the way
yeah.
that direction. I know there are some of them that are, in fact, I joked yesterday that when I lived over there, that was a long time ago. I used to come around that back way as much as I could to avoid all the other traffic up above. And I suspect there's a lot of people that do that. And with all the growth that's occurred out there in the last 5 years with affordable housing and other options, I can't imagine why that wouldn't be a good thing for the community at large and for our employees. And it's something that we're, again, quite interested in figuring out how can we help support it. I think we already talked about the arterial. This is something that would need to move to the east. Again, we don't own the access to that. But it is something that we agree, and we have tried to pursue other access into those areas. And to your earlier point, there are a lot of developers. I've had many conversations with developers about things that could be done out in that area. And right now it's just not there for us. So, okay, so that's the end of my presentation. I want to thank all of you for having us today. We'll certainly take the actions that you had for us and follow up on them. You're welcome to a tour. We'll organize a tour if you're interested in that. And is there any other questions I can answer today or anything I didn't cover that you'd like me to talk about?
Commissioner Goldthorpe.
And I don't know if you can address this, but some time ago, about the time that the expansion was first announced, I received a frantic phone call from someone whose name I won't mention because you'll know him, concerned that the air quality was going to be adversely impacted with the extension from what he called a level 1 emitter to a level 3. Do you know what, if anything, is being proposed to be done to mitigate that?
Yeah, so I can't go into a lot of detail because it's not my area, but Micron's filing all of the right environmental impact paperwork, all of that's actually being done now. And in fact, some of it's coming into a public comment period here shortly. So we believe we've done everything that we can to make sure that none of those things happen and that we're going to stay level 1. But I can't go into a lot of detail because it's not my area of expertise. But I would just assure you that that is a high priority for us and something that we've been working on since the beginning.
Any idea when those plans are going to be made public?
I think actually they were going to file with the CHIPS program office yesterday. So it may be in the public comment today or tomorrow. I'm not sure exactly.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Heather,
Anything else?
thank you so much for making the time to come and share this with us. So I guess my only question is, are there any, aside from us working with you all and the city, I think there's some city to ACHD and Micron conversations that we need to have and staff to staff conversations that we need to have. But aside from that, are there any other upcoming deadlines that we will need to be apprised of? I'm thinking we'll know more once we chat about the new access potentially. But is there anything outside of that that is definite that we'll need our assistance with?
I know there's another application that we're going to make shortly. So as we're making other changes inside the campus and other access points and things, I think you'll hear from us about those. But
Okay,
other than that, there isn't any other imminent deadlines.
sounds great. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you
so
very much.
Thank you for your work.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right.
So Madam President, so
Andrew.
this would be directed to our staff, the Boise City staff. I think it's absolutely critical that we follow up. I think there needs to be an amendment to our capital improvements plan immediately. Commissioner Goldthorpe suggested that our impact fees can be used for these expansions. It can't because they're not listed as funded in our capital improvements plan. So they need to be listed as funded in our capital improvements plan. And I know that will cause the rates to change unless we pull something out. So this is an example of cart before horse. We knew that the potential for expansion of Micron, the potential of expansion in that whole area of the city has been on the works for a long time. And yet there hasn't been any movement in this, these changes. And so I'd like to just see that move forward. I know there are problems with the way we have our capital improvements impact fee system set up. The long-term things we have to address, but in the meantime, I think there should be a way of identifying these. I just want to point out to the commission too, I've been on this commission now for 12 years. We've been talking about in the larger community about having some sort of commuter rail system. And this was always an example. Look what would what would happen if there was a massive expansion in this industrial area of the city, and allow people to get to their work by commuter rail. But we said no, and the state said no, we're not interested. So this expansion's coming, and it will largely, with the exception of those lucky folks who can cycle down the Federal Way bike path, most of them will all be coming by single occupancy vehicle through existing roadways. So I think we are nearing a crisis in the way this is, in the way local government, state government, state planning has been moving in towards the network. We have much more detailed examples in our master street map and our capital improvements plan to the west, where these arterials are going to be built out in the desert for new homes, but not here where the industrial jobs are going to be built. So I think we have to address it. And if this isn't an example of sort of missing the boat for the last decade, let's get on with it.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, and Commission, for point of clarification, the last CIP update actually added that arterial. So it is in our CIP, and we are, yes, it was added, funded to the CIP. We are collecting impact fees for that. Ultimately, this is a question of priorities from the commission. It will take funds in order to build that. We do believe that there's opportunity that we could work with Micron to accomplish that. Obviously, the acquisition of right-of-way could be something that from the public perspective, we could participate in and work through that. We don't have a finalized alignment. We do have an identified general vicinity, which would align with what the plans that they're showing. However, really, this is a conversation when it comes down to our budget and integrated 5-year work plan and how the priority the commission would like us to put on that. But we do have, just wanted to clarify that we do have that in our CIP and would be able to move that forward.
So what would it take to get a calculation of the funding for the Lake Hazel extension, because it's not funded, and the new arterial or collector between Columbia and Highway 21? Those are the two parts that aren't funded then in our CIP. Is that correct? Those aren't funded?
So, Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, that's something we can look at through our CIP update. We could look at those particular items. I do know the Lake Hazel extension is identified. The question is whether it's funded or not, whether it's right-of-way preservation or not. But it is identified. That project's always been intended to be developer driven when that extension of Lake Hazel over to Eisenman occurs.
You mean other developer, not Micron developer?
Correct.
Other developers.
As that area develops out, as that we would work to make that extension possible through that.
Thank you. All right, so I've been told that Joe, moving on to our second item, excuse me, work session, Pedestrian Advisory Group, Joe is not here, so we'll skip that, right? Cynthia, you're not here to present on that. Okay, fabulous. All right, so the next one is the Bicycle Advisory Committee, updating goals. Welcome, Miss Mary Beth Nutting. We're happy to have you.
Be here. Mary Beth Nutting, 5390 North Wall Avenue, Boise, 83703. Madam President and members of the commission, I am the chair of the Bicycle Advisory Committee. I would like to thank you for this opportunity to share what the BAC has been working on over the past year. Before I begin, though, I would like to recognize and thank ACHD staff for their support of the Bicycle Advisory Committee. Thank you to Meg McCarthy and Dave Rader for their guidance and knowledge in working with the Bicycle Advisory Committee. Thank you to other ACHD staff members for presenting projects and valuable information to the committee, for answering all of our questions, and for collecting our feedback. And commissioners, I'm sincere when I say you have an exceptional team here at ACHD. They are always a pleasure to work with. So thank you to them. At the direction of the commission in 2005, the Bicycle Advisory Committee was established. There are 13 members of the Bicycle Advisory Committee. At the end of last year, 4 of the members' terms ended, and there were 55 applicants for those 4 openings. That is very significant. In filling those 4 openings, the BAC members were diligent in ensuring that there is a representation in all 5 of the districts, and that there is a diverse range of people who ride bicycles on the committee. Representation includes youth, seniors, adaptive riders, people who bicycle with children, recreational cyclists, and commuters. This representation is valuable when we discuss conditions and infrastructure for all ages and abilities. For instance, we recently received a presentation about the Pierce Park from Lucky Lane to Hill Road project. We had a robust 45-minute discussion about the project that includes perspectives from that diverse group of people who ride bicycles. We wrote a letter to the commission with the request for our preferred concept. Please know, when we write letters to the commission asking for consideration of a preferred concept or making specific recommendations according to the bylaws of the Bicycle Advisory Committee, these letters come from a diverse group of people riding bicycles throughout the 5 districts. This past year, the Bicycle Advisory Committee has bicycled in several parts of the county to ride proposed bikeways, to look at bicycle infrastructure, and to make recommendations. We rode the proposed Edna Street Bikeway that will run from Maple Grove to Rogue River Way west of 55, as well as Records Way Bikeway that will run from Fairview by the Village to Brook Meadow Way located just south of the YMCA. That is a very large area to give people a safe place to bike. We recently bicycled in the city of Kuna. One of our BAC members, Wava Kaufman, worked with the city of Kuna, ACHD staff, and another member, Antonio Smith, to create a route for the BAC to ride in order to look at potential streets for a future bikeway in Kuna, and also to look at areas that needed to be approved upon to create safer places for people to bicycle in the city. We will be bicycling on the Central Bench on July 20th to look at recently built bicycle infrastructure, and we would like to invite the commission to join us for a ride. And if you need access to a bike, I can help you with that. We have joined the ACHD Pedestrian Advisory Group and the ADA Advisory Committee to walk and roll on and to discuss several projects. Oahe Street, Mitchell Street, and recently State Street from 8th to 14th Street. Throughout the year, we have had subcommittees that have focused on a variety of recommendations: the Integrated 5-Year Work Plan, BAC prioritization, the Bicycle Advisory Committee's chip seal recommendations, the League of American Bicyclists bicycle-friendly community application, and the bicycle level of traffic stress, livable streets, performance measurements. We have received presentations from staff at ACHD and Compass on specific topics: permanent bicycle counters, the Regional Safety Action Plan, updates on the MUTCD as it relates to bicycles, updates to the access management policy and the shared use pathway policy, delineators, and the LTS audit. These presentations keep us updated on actions as they relate to bicycling in the county. Lastly, we have written several letters to the commission. We wrote a request to place a bicycle-specific light at 8th and State Street, a letter with recommendations to the shared use pathway policy, a letter that listed the BAC priorities for the Integrated 5-Year Work Plan, and a request to address bicycle safety on Beacon Light, and another letter to address bicycle safety on Cartwright Road in Siemens Gulch. Related to this, we would like to ask the commission to revisit our request to address bicycle safety on both Beacon Light and the Cartwright Road Siemens Gulch Loop. There are plans to place signs in those areas that will alert motorists to people bicycling in the area, but we feel that more needs to be done. Our letters request a lowering of the speed limit and expanding the bicycle lanes. Last week, Ada County Commissioners discussed setting a speed limit of 10 miles per hour on the green belt, and later changed the proposal to the ordinance to speeds that are reasonable and prudent for the conditions. The commission noted the increased numbers of users and conflicts on the green belt. People riding bicycles are losing spaces to ride longer distances, and with that loss comes to the increase of people on the green belt. If we can preserve those areas like Beacon Light and the Cartwright Siemens Gulch Loop that have been historically used by people bicycling for decades in Ada County, we can ease some of the congestion and improve safety on the Greenbelt. Not only that, but the preservation of the legacy, and there is a legacy, that Ada County is a safe and beautiful place for people to bicycle. We would like to invite the commission to attend our virtual monthly back meetings. The meetings are held on the first Monday of the month at 5 p.m. The Bicycle Advisory Committee thanks the commission for the opportunity to serve the commission, the district, and the residents of Ada County. It is really a pleasure to be able to do this. So thank you.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Mary Beth, I just want you to know how much I appreciate your presentation. And for many, many years have appreciated your polite, civil, and very enjoyable approach to this subject. And I've enjoyed the many, many, many meetings that I've attended for the committee, and that'll continue. But thank you for the way you've presented this.
Thank you, Commissioner Goldthorpe, and we really appreciate you attending. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, I just want to echo my appreciation since joining the commission. This will be the last presentation, I guess, since it's annual that you'll do while I'm a commissioner. We've come a long way, and I learned an enormous amount sitting in on your meetings. I wish more commissioners would regularly sit in on the meetings, mostly because you don't all agree with each other and you have many different perspectives. But I now have a perspective of the kind of advocacy you have for the use of a right-of-way for multiple modes, and then seeing what happens when that investment is made and the enhancement of all modes when they all function as safely, and the economic value. They're places people want to be. There are parts of, and it's largely in the Boise area where I've seen this happen, places that are now much more vibrant because people feel safer getting there by driving, walking, and cycling. And it's because of the investments and the advice that the Bicycle Advisory Committee, that's one of the oldest advisory committees, has made to this commission. And I can see that going in. It's not about just one mode. It's about all modes within the right of way that we hold in the public trust. And I really appreciate the work they've done. And I think that example of people applying for a position shows that, yeah, they see this is a valuable application of my perspective, my expertise, and my time, that it will be taken seriously. And so as a result, they really want to serve, which wasn't the case 12 years ago. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Hanson.
Commissioner McKinney.
Madam President, thank you. Yes, Mary Beth, just a quick question. Thank you for your presentation. One of the things you mentioned was a concern about loss of bicycle facilities. Can you be more specific? What exactly are you referring to? Can you amplify that?
Absolutely. President Pickering, Commissioner McKinney, thank you so much for that question. And if I may, I'd like to be specific to Beacon Light, to use that for an example. So it's been a route for a very long time. And when I say very long, I'm talking like 40 plus years for bicyclists to go out floating feather. At one time, it was very rural, and they would go out floating feather, cross over 16, and then, go out in that area where it's just very rural. And they still go out that way. But with what's happening with on 16, floating feather was changed, where now you can only go right as you're headed west or headed east. You can only go right onto 16. You can't go straight across floating feather anymore. So therefore, a lot of the traffic, you either have a choice of going on State Street or Beacon Light when you're driving, if you want to go straight across. And that also has happened with bicyclists then too. Of course, they can't go on State Street. That would be awful. But they have to go on Beacon Light now. And what they've been doing, from my understanding, from what I've been seeing, going on Beacon Light, turning right onto Palmer, and then turning left onto Beacon Light to be able to get across 16, because they can't do it at Floating Feather anymore. And it has become very dangerous because Beacon Light really doesn't have a good space to ride on. And the speed, for instance, from 55 to Linder is 40. From Linder to 16, it all of a sudden goes to 50. And then when you cross 16, Beacon Light goes back to 40 again. So that's one of the requests that we made, is that it be lowered in that area. And I have copies of the letter too, if you'd like to see it. Is that speed be limited or reduced in that area to match where it is from Linder to 55. And then as you cross 16. Yeah.
Okay. So,
That's probably a lot more than what you wanted.
No, I
But I mean,
understand.
that's a perfect example of what has happened. There are not, yeah, I mean, and here's the thing too, is that people are still biking it. You know, that is just historically what has been used for people biking. When I say bicyclist, you know, I'm not talking about just the racer types that are Lycra clad. I'm talking about people who are just going to go out for a longer ride, who are slow, like me. I'm not breaking any records at all. I'm just out to go on a little bicycle ride, and it's not very long.
So primarily though, we're talking about recreational cyclists for the most part. Is that
You know,
fair?
yes. However, that sports park is being built there. I think that's what they refer to it as, sports park, sports complex, on the corner of 16 and Beacon Light, right? And I don't know if you all have been out there west of 16 on Beacon Light. I went out the other day and I was blown away by the number of houses. Now, the people who live in that area, they should be able to walk, get on their bike, and just roll across the way to the complex. I mean, it's a shame when we have these centers built and you may live a quarter of a mile away, but we've built these roads where people can't just walk or bike across and get to them. They're forced to get in their car to drive a quarter of a mile. So does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you also for your question. I was hoping that somebody would ask that. So thank you.
Mayor, Commissioner Gold, you have something?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to you and all the members of the BAC for your work and advocacy, and thanks for your presentation. And for reiterating your requests too. I know that our staff has been looking at that and will continue to look at that. And if they haven't already shared information with you, they plan to shortly. So thanks again.
That is fantastic. Thank you, Commissioner Gold.
Well, I'll just say I really appreciate you taking the time to present to us and sharing like this highlight reel of impact. It's incredible to see how effective and efficient and impactful you all are, and please keep it up. Like Commissioner Hansen was saying, we have all of us elected officials have bounded rationality. We don't know everything about everything, and really rely on our advisory committees like yourselves to kind of be that guidepost for us. And I've always, so just thank you so much for the time and effort that you've done, because it is making a difference for us.
Well, we love it. So thank you so much.
All right, so we have our last one, but I think we should probably take a 10-minute break first. before we jump into the integrated 5-year work plan initial draft. So we'll recess until 1:05. All right, it's now 1:05. I'm gonna call us back to the post-commission agenda. We have one final item for today. And it's the 2025-2029 Integrated 5-Year Work Plan. This is an initial draft presentation by staff. Welcome, Christy Inselman.
Well, hello, thank you. Sorry, I did that way too low. Good afternoon, Commission. For the record, Christy Inselman, Planning Supervisor in our Planning and Projects Division and Construction and few shifting. So today I'm here to excitedly present the draft of the 25-29 Integrated 5-Year Work Plan. So just as a recap on where we've been in the process, as you guys are all aware, this is an annual update that we do. It's a year-long process. We started back in December of last year. To date, we have done all of the original programming, partner and public outreach, done the initial programming and program development. So today we're here to present on the initial draft. Tomorrow we will release the initial draft to the public, and that will start the comment period that will run July 11th through August 14th. In the middle of that, we will have a public open house, and that will be a joint presentation with our budget and the Integrated 5-Year Work Plan. That's also the same night that we're doing the Neighborhood in the Know. I always get the name wrong. Okay. And so they'll all be held on the same evening here in the auditorium. So that'll give a little bit over a month to the public and our partners to provide feedback. And again, we'll have our interactive map where they can provide direct feedback. And then our cities will do an outreach to them as well, provide them updates on their requests with a targeted adoption of September 25th. And I'll go more into some of those dates as we go on. So just looking back on the public and partner outreach that we did earlier this year. So our partner agencies, we held a kickoff meeting in January. We held individual meetings with partner agencies upon request. And then they had from December through March 15th to provide their prioritization lists. Those lists consisted, each agency provided us a list of priorities for projects that were already in the plan, and then a list of projects that had not made it into the plan yet. Total, there were 585 project requests from our partner agencies. Those do consist of all 6 cities, the county, the 3 school districts, VRT, and BSU. The public outreach also began shortly after that. We had an interactive map version of this. So the year prior, we had done an interactive map for the public to provide feedback. And that was just a blank slate. We just said, here, just tell us what you want. And that we received a ton of feedback on, which was great. But one of the things we heard from the public is they were like, we would love to see when we're giving you comments or what projects have you already identified through some effort, whether it be from the public or neighborhood plans or CIP or the Integrated 5-Year Work Plan. So what we did was we updated that tool, made it a little bit more user-friendly. So this is a little screenshot. So they had an option, they had 2 tabs. The first tab had all of those previously identified projects already on a map. So they could click on any one of those lines, see what had been identified for that corridor, crossing, intersection, whatever it was, and then provide direct feedback on that. And then the second tab is where they could say, hey, I'm not seeing something here, or we're missing something here. And then they could provide new project requests. So we did receive 783 comments during that public outreach, which is amazing. We had 3,000 page views. We also sent emails out for our the members of the public that have registered for our Engage page. And there were over 9,000 emails that were sent during that initial effort. So we got really great feedback. And as always, we always do social media, posters, neighborhood groups, and then notified all of our advisory committee as well. And then I want to dive into some highlights. So obviously this is not completely exhaustive of the projects that are in the Integrated 5-Year Work Plan, but I just want to highlight some of those that are up and coming in the 2 budget years for 25 and 26 that we have highlighted for construction. So in fiscal year 25, you're going to see a wide variety of projects from our operations yards to Aikens to some of our State Highway 16 projects to bridge projects. And then in 26, similar, you're going to see a mix of those projects like Liberty, project is going to happen, STAR pathway as the interim treatment until we can get the main one done, as well as again, more State Highway 16 projects. So this is just a snapshot of some of those projects that are up and coming. And again, the interactive map that we do, it's fully color coded, so you can see quickly what the years are that are assigned to the projects. And then the next slide, it's just some plan highlights, pulling in some of those projects that have been ongoing efforts for us, like the access to opportunity projects where we have that federal funding leverage there. Those are heavily into design right now. So because of how many projects there are, total 26 of them total, it's a bigger design package. So it's going to take us several years to get those through. But then we're pulling other projects in. We have several concept studies that are going to be started this next year that are highlighted, like Eckert, Star Road, Chinden to State. We're going to have, sorry, I lost my place on the slide. Some projects in Garden City, the Osage and Stockton. We're doing a concept study starting this next year. So you're going to see a whole variety up here. There's some design concept of what we're moving forward with some projects. And then just to highlight, so total, we have in the plan 348 projects, total projects and programs for a total of $1.3 billion that are programmed over the 5 years, including future year. Oh, I was going to highlight, sorry. And you'll see it on the next slide. Not next slide, but when Mary Beth was up presenting for the BAC and she mentioned that loop for Cartwright, we already have added that to the integrated 5-year work plan as part of our bikeway program for construction in 26. So we are excited. She was very excited when I told her that. I said, we're working on it. It's made it into the plan and we're moving forward. So I just wanted to highlight that. So you get an immediate update today. And then to just highlight our second round of public outreach that will start tomorrow. Again, that runs 11th through the 14th. We will reach out to all of our partner agencies. We send individual invitations to them to review and provide feedback. We also provide them updates to those prioritization lists that they provided us back in March as to where their projects currently are sitting in the integrated 5-year work plan, as well as any updated information that we have. The public outreach will have the interactive map, which they can click on any project and provide direct feedback. Again, our PIM is happening on the 23rd. And as always, our social media will reach out to those. I did check in with our communications on how many people we have currently registered for the Engage page, and we have over 12,000 now. So the original outreach we did, there was 9, we're up to over 12,000. So 12,000 emails will go out with links to participate in this process as well. So we anticipate really good feedback this year. Just a snapshot of the interactive map. It's last minute fine tweaking to it, but it's going to be very similar how it's viewed for the public. Everything is color coded by construction year. You can click on a project. You'll get a pop-up that will give you design, right-of-way, construction year, total construction cost or total cost for the project, who the project manager is, a description of the project, and those pop-ups are also links to provide direct feedback on each one of those projects. This year, we are changing it a little bit because all of our projects are more comprehensive. The tabs along the top are now going to be where you can separate the project out by construction year and not just by type of projects, because our projects are more comprehensive than they have in the past. So there was a lot of crossover. That was kind of not super useful. So next steps, we're here today. I think I feel like I reiterate this about 15 times while I'm up here. Public comment period is opening. It'll run for a month. And then PIM. So we'll be back in front of the commission on September 9th. That will be after the close of the public outreach. And we will come back to the commission with an overview of what we heard from the public and our partners, and then any potential recommended changes to the plan, and then adoption on the 25th. And I will stand for any questions.
Thanks, Christy. Is this the time that you want us to be able to ask specific questions about and advocating for or getting clarification as to why certain projects are not in this plan? Is now a good time to do that?
We can have some of those initial comments, Madam President, if you would like. I have all of them right in front of me. I know, as you guys are all aware, we had presentations earlier this year with the cost escalations that have happened. So there have been deferrals of projects, and then delays of projects. So there have been some movement on a lot of the projects. But if there are specific ones that the commission would like to draw my attention to, that I'm happy to take that feedback now as well.
Commissioner Goldthorpe?
I have a question about some general verbiage.
Verbiage.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm looking at, because I've seen this many places in my district anyway. It says for 2025 construction projects, Safe Sidewalk Program 2025, $2.5 million.
Mhm.
What does that mean is going to happen in 2025?
Madam President, Commissioner Goldthorpe, so our Safe Sidewalk Program is a countywide program. When we identify the segments, we have a specific group and they let me know what those segments are going to be. We generally only get the segments in the first 2 years maybe, but we'll get the locations of all of those. We map them as part of the integrated 5-year work plan, and their total budget for the entire, all of the projects that are going to do across the entire county is $2.5 million. We don't, trying to get to the minutia of separating exactly how much of that 2.5 million is in Southwest Boise or in CUNA or whatever, that we can't quite do that with our program. That would be a lot of manual.
Well, part of the reason
separation.
for this question was I didn't want anyone on the commission to think we were spending $2.5 million in 50 different segments of this plan.
No.
Thanks.
And we can put a caveat language that that's the total project costs over the, 20, 30 different individual locations that we're doing, some sidewalk gaps or upgrading ped ramps or things like that, that they do with the Safe Sidewalk Program.
Yeah, I would recommend that because it's a bit confusing.
Sure.
And I have similar questions around that too. So looking at my district specifically, there's a lot on the West Bench. It just says roadway and ADA improvements. And maintenance, crack seal, safe sidewalk program. I mean, cul-de-sac repair. I mean, there's no there's hardly any specific examples until you get to literally 20 future in this particular section of the county. So could you provide some insight as to why that?
So we have, those are more the programs. So the Safe Sidewalk is a program, roadway and ADA is a program. We actually, again, with the roadway and ADA, we're provided those segments and we map them. So all of the locations of where the work is going to be occurring is located on the integrated 5-year work plan map. With our system, the programming software that I use, we would have to, for every single segment, so every single ped ramp that we did for Safe Sidewalk or every single road segment that we were doing under the roadway and ADA, we would have to create a separate project in there. And it gets very convoluted for accounting and multitude of purposes. So we just have the program, we map it, and then we have those on the map. If you're wanting specific locations listed to the project sheets, which the vast majority of the public, when they're looking for information on what projects we're doing, they use the map. They use the interactive map and they go to their area and they see the line, they can click on it and it'll pop up and say roadway and ADA, but it'll be the actual road segment listed. So we've kind of, we get very little from those sheets from the public. They don't use them as much. So, and those are also tied directly to the system. So we would have to manually create them to add all of the segments into those sheets.
So I think that's helpful to understand. However, I still get folks really confused because it's like they read this and then they read the map and they don't quite know
But making that
making that
connection.
connection. And then that is what that is. And there's that alignment and they might go other places on our website, right? And then that's when I get the flurry of
Yeah.
confusion that it's like, oh my gosh, this isn't in the plan.
We do have other reports that we could utilize. So we just did, we used to do those all completely manually through staff. Because the old reports, we were given feedback from the commission. We wanted to change the style, the information that was provided. So,
Let me finish my thought.
oh, I'm so
Christie.
sorry. Please.
So my proposal is that there needs to be some language on this plan, or at least on each of these community sections where it's like, please refer to the map for these specific, segments, right? Because it's too complicated or something like that. So I think that's, because I'm gonna get calls and folks are gonna be like, all these things that you've told us are gonna come, they're not on this. So I think just some type of language in this, because they're gonna do a control F and this is gonna pop up, and that can address some of those concerns. I think that's an easy fix.
Yeah. And I was going to say, Madam President, we also have other reports that we can pull from the system that we use that pulls in the project description. And the project description, we could list out the segments. So if that type of report would be more useful for the public, it also still is broken down by neighborhood planning area. It still has name, description, total project cost. So it has a lot of the same information. It's just not as, doesn't have the icons.
Sure.
But if that is the preference, we're happy to do that.
I think that would be important to do.
Or we could put both, we can put all of them on there. They can have multiple ways to look at the projects on our webpage.
Yeah, I think looking at Shandy, you probably have a good sense of the types of questions and responses that we get. So whatever strategy you think is going to work best for that. So I think those are that was my big questions, but I'm going to hold some of my other ones until the end. But Commissioner McKinney?
Sorry, Madam President, I just wanted to respond briefly to that. Some of the questions that you're having are more programs as opposed to projects. But if there are specific segments that you want to see in there that you're not seeing in there, we need to know what those are. And so please either send us a quick list to say, are these in here? And we can confirm that and then make sure that it's transparent for everyone. But if they're not in there, we want to have that conversation with you to make sure that they're there. It's super helpful for us we don't want to be in a place where we're not representing your priorities. And so if we can make that clear, we want to be able to do that. But unless we know what those are, we're not able to verify that they're there. Thank you.
Commissioner McKinney?
Thank you. Yeah, Christy, just to make sure that I have a clear understanding as I'm reviewing all of this on the chart that we have of all the projects, does the project type category, does that correspond directly and necessarily to budget categories that we have?
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, not necessarily.
Okay.
It was more of a descriptor to try to explain what type of project that was, to be more holistic in the understanding. We have programs, so we have our community programs, and you'll see project type community. Like our CIP projects, a lot of times you'll see those as livable streets because we wanted to have language in there that more fully encompass what we were actually doing with that project, because that ties to our livable streets design guide, where it's not just the roadway, it's sidewalk, it's bike facilities, that kind of thing.
Well, and yeah, right. And that was kind of my second question, because that livable streets category or project type is something that we haven't used before. So I want to make sure that I understand what that means. In the past, what project type descriptor would we have used for those projects? Would we have said, what would we have called them?
Madam President, Commissioner McKinney, we've had that project type the last several years for these forms. Those have been there and we've used the same language.
Yes, we have.
So in any case where it says community, that's community programs, presumptively, but not necessarily, is that what you're
Correct.
saying? And so when it says maintenance, does that mean it's not necessarily coming from the maintenance budget?
Like very highly likely would be. It's kind of hard, those types, again, because of our going once strategy and because of our very comprehensive approach to our projects now, maintenance isn't really descriptive of what this project is. It's not the only thing. That's why we also added the icons, that it may be a maintenance project, but then we've added the icons because we're also going to add sidewalk and we're also going to add ADA upgrades. So there are some that are straight maintenance projects like cul-de-sac projects or crack seal. But then there are some where it is the focus of that project originally is maintenance, but now with our holistic approach, we're also going to do these other things. And that's what the icons are meant to represent. But again, if that's, we have multiple different types of reports that we can pull, that if that's not the right way to present that to the public, then we're happy to look at the other options that we have available.
Okay.
We
Well,
can go, we have reports where we can pull it by program
Right.
and then it gets each project listed, or we can pull it by neighborhood planning area with project description. So we have quite several new ones that we've added that we can
So-
tell the story.
So then would it be the probably presumptively the better way to understand about each of these projects is to use the map and click on the individual thing, and that'll give us all the information on that particular project. Is that?
Yeah.
And will each of those individual map icons or what have you will directly correspond to one
Yep.
line on this and only one, or are there ever multiple for
There
any
will only
one
be
thing?
one.
It'll only be one.
Mhm.
Okay.
So if we have a mile-long segment of roadway and you see two dots and a line, and anything you click on there will just be for that one project, that one roadway, and it'll have a
Okay.
bridge and a crossing and everything. It'll just be one.
Okay.
There'll be
But-
one line on there.
But then based on what you told Commissioner Goldthorpe a little earlier, it's possible that like these program projects that could be in multiple places, excuse me, there may be multiple places on the map that you click that'll take you all back to just one line on
Correct.
the graph here. Okay.
That's
All right.
correct.
Good. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Hanson?
Yeah, so thanks, Christy. It was the same frustration I had last year, which is trying to figure out where on the map, because that's what I use the most. And when I'm talking to people, I say, yeah, here, open your map, let's look on and see, and then find out. But the map isn't being voted on. We're voting on this stuff. And, you know, I've got 5 areas that I represent. So I've got them 3 exclusively, Southeast, Barber Valley, and East End. And then I share Central Bench and Southwest with other areas. And so seeing projects, same areas, a street, not on here specifically, obviously raises red flags. Why isn't it on here? Barber Valley, I got a call from 2 people because they are, and you know, it doesn't say anything. All that says is we might do some cul-de-sac repair and some maintenance slurry seal. And yet Barber Valley gave me a list of things, and I know gave the city a list of things. And I know we gave, so the neighborhood, the city, the school district. And so nothing's on there even for future. So they were saying, where are they? There isn't even the sidewalk. Most of them were built by the developer anyway, or roadway and ADA improvement. That was the one Commissioner Goldthorpe pointed out. And that number appears on some of the regions, but not on others. And the number is all different. For example, in Southeast, roadway and ADA improvements say 10,666,000, but I don't know where those are. Is that 10 million all within Southeast area or shared countywide?
Shared countywide.
Shared countywide, because it's a different amount in the Central Bench, the ADA. No, see, he isn't even listed there. So I don't know why it appeared on, oh no, roadway and ADA improvements is 15,682. So 15 million, excuse me, 682,000. So that's a different number on the Central Bench's list for ADA and roadway improvements in the Southeast.
And it may be a different year and they would have different amounts that we have.
No, they're both 25,
Okay.
2025.
We'll have to
So
fix
that's
that.
why it's kind of confusing. They're not on some lists and they are on, and what projects are they referring to?
Right.
And so when I go and say, yeah, I advocated for this for the last umpteen years, it's on there, we're gonna, we've scoped it, we're gonna design it, we're gonna build it on these years. The only place I can find that is clicking on the map. But the map doesn't get updated until after we've already approved the 5-year plan. So I don't know what I'm voting on,
Yeah.
because if it's not on there, then it's like, oh, well, it's still out in the future.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, the map and the lists all come from the same system. So the map that people have access to starting tomorrow will be that.
Yeah.
They will have access to, it's not the 24-28 that was adopted. It's the initial draft. It'll have the new years that are being proposed, the new costs, everything will be on that map.
So we can access that map right now to look at this.
Starting tomorrow morning, you'll be
starting
able to access that,
Okay,
yes.
that will be helpful.
Yes.
The other is there's always things that just, we don't talk about it. So the Central Bench area, there's a number of things I've been talking about. Nez Perce comes to mind. For years, suddenly, and I haven't been talking about Vista. Because, Vista has its own issues. Suddenly Vista is up there in front. And so all this money is going to be spent here. And yet we've been talking about, so I get confused as to why some things suddenly appear and they get moved ahead of what we've been talking about for years.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, so Vista is part of our federal aid program. So that one has very specific federal funding. There's very little general funds that we're actually going to utilize. So some of those projects we're able to get funding from a different source. So like Nez Perce, that's all going to be general funds. That's all going to be our dollars. Vista, like Vista Overland and segments of both Overland and Vista, those are both part of our roadway and ADA, which are federal aid funding.
Right. So
That's why some of those will get accelerated over others.
So we're letting the feds or the state decide what's a priority for our neighborhoods? Because why can't we make Nez Perce? We're rebuilding we're doing a ton of ADA. The feds like that. We're resurfacing it. We're doing all these things that you could use federal money for, but we're saying, no, we've decided we're going to use this other money. And so what the feds, or somehow our perception of what the feds want us to use, gets to keep moving in. And because we want to do one and done, we go in and do that before we do what the neighborhoods have been asking for years. So that's why if you want me to reprioritize, putting Nez Perce ahead of Vista, the neighborhood will be asking for that. But
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, Commission, I just want to provide a little bit of clarification on some of these, where projects come from. Now, we have our general fund projects that follow the prioritization, and we receive the priorities from the cities, but we also have priorities that come from our asset management, the need to do maintenance on a roadway. Now, because of the one and done system that the commission has directed, when we go in and do maintenance, a road, historically, we would have just gone and done the maintenance on Vista because it needed to be done. And we would have used the federal funding that we have available for maintenance to go just do that. But because now we're looking at projects holistically, we're also doing other things at the same time that we're doing those maintenance projects. So there are projects that come in because of priorities and requests and other things, but there are also projects that kind of come from staff of, hey, we need to go build this road, but with the direction, we're going to also do other things there.
Right.
Otherwise the road's going to fall apart. Those are what we're, so there's different ways projects come to be. The federal funding is available for arterials and collector roadways and for maintenance. That is what the funding is available for and what we've received the funding for. We can only go do it as maintenance projects. So in this case, staff said maintenance, we need this road has the greatest maintenance need right now. Well, let's go do this. That's why it appears to jump ahead, but it's not jumping ahead of anything. It's really, that's what we have funding to do. Let's go take care of that. And oh, by the way, while we're there, let's do other things. Whereas you have projects that we go in and say, oh, we need to go rebuild this roadway. Oh, by the way, we may do maintenance at the same time. Does that make sense? There's kind of two different ways projects come to be. And if that's not what the commission wants us to do and we've misunderstood, happy to take that direction and or to go back and look at some of these things.
no,
But
it
that's
makes,
really
it
the
makes if
where
the
we're
feds
coming from.
put restrictions, Madam President and Director, if it puts, the feds have put restrictions because they use this, typology, then, okay, then we would distinguish between arterials, collectors, and local roads. So I could see some distinction between that. And Nez Perce, I assume, is not a collector. It's just a local road, even though it's used like a collector. Believe me, that's a major cutoff, and that's why the issues have arisen during this for a long time. But it's also why Warm Springs, which is an arterial or collector, it clearly is, and it's both at various points, but it's not. So I don't, so maybe we need to look at whether we're being more, the feds allow us to use the money more broadly than what we are using it. In the past, we've said, okay, it's just to do pavement preservation, and that's how we're going to use all that federal money. And in fact, we can use it for more. And I think maybe we need to dive in and say we can use it for more so that the priorities that come to us from our partners actually move up faster, as part of our mission to build better, build faster, build safer, because we have this whole pool of money that things just keep forcing us to put them at the back of the list.
Madam President, based on some of the feedback I'm hearing, it seems like the commission wants to spend a little bit of time looking at the program, maybe looking at the map that we have available and providing some feedback. It doesn't necessarily feel like you're exactly ready for it to go live. And if we need to push that back a couple weeks, we're more than happy to do that. This is a plan, and it's available. And if the commission would like a little bit more time to dive into it to make sure that it's what you're comfortable with going out to the public, we're more than happy to push that back as well.
Well, I'm happy to let the commission weigh in on that, but I mean, I feel like Commissioner Hanson, your point is, it's a little bit of communication.
Yeah, I would say get the public in.
But I think, but to your concern about Vista is a little bit about communication. And also with the big chunk of my district are recipients of the Access to Opportunities grant. But there's also with just how this is structured, there's this perception that that investment isn't actually coming because it's not described as clearly as it could. But then it's also then reinforcing this, oh, are we getting federal money, which then pushes these other priorities that we've been advocating for down when we've been getting this influx of additional new revenue, which why would that, impact what we've been prioritizing anyway, because it's influx of new money. So that's what I'm really confused about genuinely. And I think that kind of ties into what you're saying, which I don't think is necessarily part of I think maybe having a couple weeks could help with some of that, but I don't think that that's really going to solve it. So I think we just need some clarity about why those types of trade-offs and why is that federal money showing up in this type of way and presented in this plan in this way. So I think Christy, obviously don't expect you to come up with an answer right on the fly. We might need to kind of hash this out a little bit more deeply, but I'm comfortable with moving forward as long as we just have maybe a specific conversation with that type of scope, for example. And we just dive on a couple of these projects as test cases as to because we need to be able to understand those trade-offs so then we can, understand it for ourselves, but then be able to explain it to our constituents who have also been advocating for those projects as well. Commissioner Goldthorpe.
Yeah, I'm advocating for going forward as well, because the vast majority of anything that people want to know about this plan will be discovered by clicking on a map.
Yeah.
Commissioner Gold.
Yeah, Madam President, I agree with moving forward with releasing it to the public. And I think that we can flesh out these details and concurrently and by the time, it reaches the point of adoption, be able to have that communication better defined or, whatever the need is that we've come to that conclusion.
Okay, Commissioner Hanson.
Oh, yeah, definitely, because the feedback I'm getting is from the public, and that's what I want to. So let's get it out there. And I would agree with Commissioner McKinney. It's confusing, this project type, program type, maintenance, community. We're doing a one and done. It's really about the location. Even the icons, my view is if we're going in there and addressing speeding problems, that's a vehicular issue too. So you ought to have a vehicular facility symbol as well, because we're making it safe for drivers. Certainly if we make Owyhee Street safer, where that turn and a speeder hit and killed herself. that definitely benefits vehicles. It's not if we made it safer for just pedestrians, because it was a single driver or a driver hitting a stationary object. So even those symbols tend not to really flesh out what is one and done. What are the things we're gonna do there? And I know you're trying to do that, but I'd get rid of that project type list, since it's down to now just 3 categories of maintenance, community, or bridges. So yeah, it really doesn't tell us anything.
Madam President, all of the commissioners, I think I may have a report that we can use instead of this one that will check off a lot of the boxes that you guys are highlighting today. And I'd be happy to share that with you later
Yeah.
this afternoon.
I had one last question, and that was, and I'm making assumptions, so it needs to be careful about the funding for the rapid implementation, which is so important because it gets us to address an issue within a year. Where does that fall, and how is that reflected in the 5-year plan? Or is that something completely, because those are very project specific. Some of those are in advance of some permanent change.
Correct. Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, so we've added multiple programs to the integrated 5-year work plan that are specifically for their rapid implementation that have dedicated funding. They're similar to like the Safe Sidewalk, where they have a very specific funding source. And I believe it's all general funds that the rapid implementation is pulling from. So, but you will, again, similar to the Safe Sidewalk, it's one program, but I reach out and I work with that safety team and they give me a list of projects to map that they know are going to construction in 25. So those would also be represented that way. In the out years, we don't know yet. So we're not mapping out in 28, but the program will still be listed.
So how will it show up on the?
If we have the project identified, the location identified, then we identify which neighborhood plan it's going to be in. So it'll show up on that page. Again, I'll fix the reports, and then on the map itself, it'll be that icon. Otherwise, it'll be on, there is a sheet in there that's like a TBD, because we don't know where it's going to go yet, but we still represent that program is in there and the funding tied to that program is in there. So we have multiple RPI, so safe sidewalks, RPI, signalization. There's like 2, I think, additional that are going with that.
Speed bumps, speed humps? Is that?
Yeah, each program is very specific as the description lists out what it's used for. Yeah.
Madam President? Yeah, Christie, I wonder, and a thought just occurred to me, and I don't know if this is possible or advisable, but I wonder if we might consider all of these projects are divided into geographic portions of the county. But it sounds like we have some projects or project categories, project types that are county-wide. That is to say, these rapid implementation programs, the sidewalks program and so on. Would it be beneficial, and I welcome input from staff and from the commission on this, would it be beneficial to have a separate category for these types of county-wide program type projects as a separate portion in this tabulation that we've got? Would that be helpful? Do any of the rest of you think that that would be helpful? Is that something that could be, that would be useful for staff, or is that going to complicate things?
Commissioner Goldthorpe?
My first thought is that that it would complicate things for us, because if we had that separate heading and there was nothing area by area about where it was going to be spent, people would go, huh? And I just do not get those phone calls.
And I think, and I appreciate the idea. I just think we're like throwing, there's a lot of like things that have been thrown out already, and I don't want to completely, and then like, these are some massive structural changes that just a handful of commissioners are bringing to light that I don't think we need to kind of continue to, we don't need to open up for all things and maybe just incrementally talk about some fixes. But I agree with Commissioner Goldthorpe. I don't think I think that would just be confusing.
Madam President, Commissioners, I will say we actually do try to think through every possible scenario of every possible way that we could present this data to the public in the most user-friendly way. So when I say that we have multiple different styles of reports that could meet your needs, we do. We have several. So if you would prefer to see it and talk to your constituents by program, we can get that to you. If you prefer to see it by neighborhood plan with project descriptions, we can do that as well. The updates that we just did this year to the system that we use made it very flexible. If you want it by commission district, I made it so that I can print out these projects by commission district. So there's a lot of ways that I can get the data to you in whichever format you would prefer. It doesn't have to be one, and we can put multiple options on the website too. So
And I think, so Christy, I think I'd love to take you up on that. And I think it would be easier if you just shared what are those options?
absolutely.
And then each commissioner can then follow up with you about how they'd like that information to be presented. Because I think not knowing what are the
What are the
various,
options? Yeah.
what are those options also creates kind of a challenge for us to ask the right questions to get to where we want to go. So I think that'll just address a lot of issues. So
Sounds
that'll be
great.
helpful.
Great. So,
Um,
Madam President and Christie, so the interactive map is live tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
So we can each go to that and spend time looking to see whether the description in the interactive map, which is what we will be voting on if no changes are made, is what we believe should be in the 5-year plan. So that's and that will, my suggestion is that should be the sort of the tool that we use at the neighborhood gathering budget on the 23rd. So that they all then go in and each of them are able to see and use that tool. I
Yeah.
think that's the most helpful tool.
Madam President, Commissioner Hanson, the meeting that we hold every year, we do that. We actually will have our IT will set up laptops and we have this entire station where the public can come in and we have that interactive map and we have staff there that can walk them through how to utilize it. So yeah, no,
Okay.
we
thanks.
100% we will have that ready for them.
So one particular project, and there's a couple on here, but I think I'll just chat with you offline. One of them that has been, I believe, in the integrated 5-year work plan is a future project that is not in this one is Adams here in Garden City. And I just wanted to get a sense as to why it's not on here, considering all of the development and with the, the plans of us moving and selling this property. I think it's going to be really important that Adams is also being considered and coordinated with this development.
Madam President, Adams, if it's not showing up on the list, then that's an error on that sheet. It is in there. We have Adams Street scheduled for concept study to start in 26.
I did a control F and I didn't see it online. Is
But
it
I'll-
in there, Commissioner Doyle? No, I didn't see
Yeah, I'll make sure that those are, but it is in there.
Okay.
I just talked to my staff about who's getting assigned what in the next couple
Well,
years.
that's
So
comforting because that was a really big
yes.
red flag for me. Commissioners, any other questions for Christy? Well, we look forward to seeing that email with, and thank you for all of your hard work. Yeah, looking forward to getting this penciled out. All right.
Thank you.
Well, commissioners, that's it for this week. We'll see you all next week. Thanks.